All right, we are here. Let me finish the music.
Morning, Mike.
Can't really go over that. Good morning, Adrian.
Man, that is
How are you
great.
doing today?
The way to kick off the stream. I like the rock and roll.
You know, I'm a rocker. So, well, thanks everyone for coming and watching our Zeta Data stream. Today we're focusing on password managers. But before I get started, again, I want to thank you. This is our second episode, so we're learning the ropes, I guess. And we wanted to, say if you want to chime in, you want to send us a message, a comment, feel free. We'll be looking at that and we'll answer those. But if not, come check out our YouTube channel. You can see our videos there. We'll have this video after the live stream if you can't make it. And with that, Adrian, how's your day going?
So far, so good. I can't complain. I mean, honestly, it's nice to take a little break from work, step into the room here, the studio, and just chat about, honestly, one of my favorite subjects when it comes to cybersecurity, because it applies to everybody. So if you're watching this, if you're joining live, doesn't matter if you are in business or if it's a personal side of IT, you're going to want to listen to this one.
Yeah. Today we're talking about password managers and the pros and cons. And I mean, I can kind of share a story real quick before we bring on our guests. We have some guests from LastPass who, are one of the more popular known brands when it comes to a password manager. But Adrian turned me on to a password manager when I started at Zeta Sky. Before that, I was still trying to, remind myself or cram all these different passwords in my brain. And you don't realize it. 100 or more password accounts you could have at any time. And if you went and actually listed out all your accounts, you'd be surprised. And since the pandemic, I mean, the thing is, we created even more accounts. I think on average, it was about 15 to 20 new accounts that people created while they were online searching, doing whatever. And so, the thing is, Adrian, that passwords, it's better to just kind of let technology take care of that in some ways, right?
Yeah, I mean, you won't believe if you already use a password manager, you know this, but if you haven't, you don't believe how many passwords and credentials, and now with apps on our phones. And what I'm really excited to talk about are things that we kind of forget password managers are used for, things like your credit cards, any sort of identification that you can store in these secure locations. But there's no way that you can keep security in your brain or even written down on a piece of paper for 500 websites and logins and credentials. So it's more than just security. It's a really convenience.
Yeah, that's true. And so, one thing I wanted to share is kind of a list of the most or the top 10, the worst passwords that we had in 2020. And so let me go ahead and share my screen.
Let me guess, is password one of them? Because usually that's the culprit.
What do you think?
It's there. Oh, it's number 4. I thought it'd be number 1. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah.
And then don't forget 7, 8, 9.
Yes.
But the thing that I want to point out is this one, Senha, which is Portuguese for password. That somehow made the list.
Yeah.
So I guess you're trying to be a little stealthy, different, but
there's a lot of Portuguese speaking people out there too. So, but yeah, if any of you use these passwords, you've probably now know why you've been hacked, or your Facebook account or your email account is always having issues. That's probably why. Don't use these.
Exactly. So, well, cool. Well, let's get started. I want to introduce our guests. We have some guests that were able to join us. First one is Chris Hawkins. And Chris has been in the IT space, kind of in the cybersecurity field for a while. He's been working at Proofpoint, which is an email security company, but now he joins us. He's working at LastPass, and he's a customer success manager. And so, also wanted to point out that Chris is a diehard Steelers fan. So, yeah, I'm a Chicago fan. Oh, you're pointing to the Steel City, huh?
Born and raised here. Big Steelers fan. Appreciate that, though.
Yeah, no problem.
Happy
And
to
then
be
I
here.
want to bring in too Jeremy Albert. Now Jeremy's interesting. He's kind of the nuts and bolts. He's the technical brains behind LastPass and setting it up for you. And what I want to share with you about Jeremy, he's embracing the work-life balance. He's a digital nomad. He's right now on high. Basically, you're at home today, right, Jeremy? But he is driving across country, working remotely, and has all the technology. So kudos to you,
That's
man.
cool. Yeah, that's cool. How long have you been on the road?
It'll be a little over a month as of yesterday. So,
And how long are you going for? How long are you going to keep doing this?
I have another month planned, and just going to keep rolling after that.
That's awesome. Well, that's technology for you. It's a different lifestyle for work now.
Exactly. Doing well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what we want to talk about today and why we had you is we want to go over just the pros and cons of a password manager. And I think the biggest pro that I can think of is you can create very easy, strong passwords without thinking about it. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah,
yeah. And I was going to say, just break it down, because I know that all of us on the call, we know what password managers are, and anybody watching this that's in IT. But Chris or Jeremy, could you just give us a simple explanation, if you're going to explain it to our moms? What is a password manager?
Go ahead, Jamie.
Explaining it to our moms, that's a difficult task sometimes. But,
That's why I gave
Yeah, you're kind of throwing the gauntlet there, Adrian.
Yeah, well,
No.
gotta keep
I know your concept, but
you could choose your dad or your mom or sibling. I don't know.
yeah, a favorite cousin or something like that.
Yeah.
But the strength of a password manager is to protect you, right? Like, you keep your credit cards in your wallet, right? You keep your personal information, your social security card. At least I do, in my safety deposit box, right? Because you want to keep things secure, right? And that's what a password manager does. And with LastPass, we call it our vault, right? Because it keeps things locked down. And that's what a password manager does, is it saves what's important to you, right? And keeps it protected.
Okay,
right.
cool. So I know that one of the biggest pros, again, we've helped hundreds of people over the years implement password management in business typically. Obviously, security, right, is the biggest pro, because what the password manager allows you to do is create complex passwords for every single website and app that you use, right? So explain, how does that work? How is it creating these passwords, and where and how is it being stored?
Yeah, great question. So what we do is we have a password generator, and that allows you to create unique passwords for every site, right? And when you use a unique password, you're reducing your security risk by 80%. Like you guys mentioned, there's those top 10 passwords, and I'm sure a lot of you in our audience and those people watching remotely, they probably used one of those passwords in the past, right? I'm guilty of that too. I've used that same password since I was a kid, and that password is floating out on the internet. You can Google it, right? It shows up next to my user ID or my email address. And, you switch to LastPass or any password manager, you generate a unique password, you're reducing your security risk. You're reducing your security risk by 80%, because over 80% of breaches are due to weak or reused passwords. So by having a secure password, you're reducing your risk.
Right. And I mean, for those of you who are watching this that haven't used a password manager, I can tell you from personal experience, if you're not using one, you're never going to create an 18 character, symbols, lower uppercase number. It's too hard to remember. But with LastPass, you literally can say, generate me an 18 character symbols, uppercase, lowercase password. You'll never have to remember it. You're only going to remember one password, which is called your master password. So think of it as like having a master key that you can go and unlock tons of different locks out there, but that's all you need to have is that one key. It's essentially, I think, the best analogy I can come up with for someone who's never used it before. So yeah, I mean, definitely I would say it goes without saying, the biggest pro is security, right? Because it solves that issue of reusing the same or even similar passwords. So one thing I'll share, Mike, and I know we've run into this a lot, typically Mike and I, for those of you who don't know, with Zeta Sky, we provide cybersecurity and IT services to businesses. And a lot of times we're brought in after a breach has happened. And what's happening more and more is that employees use the same or very similar passwords for something in their personal life. For example, their personal Gmail account or a Facebook account. Well, then they come to work in a company and they use the same again for a work environment, maybe their Microsoft Office 365 account. So what do you think happens if they get hacked personally on their Facebook? That attacker goes directly to Microsoft 365 and tries those logins. Of course, there's other security that you should have in place. Those are separate webinars and meetings, but the very easy way to combat that is make sure that your employees are not using or reusing or recycling passwords. So my question, I'll throw this out to you, Chris. How do you combat that? How does LastPass specifically combat employees using, if they use LastPass, that's great. But what if they use the same passwords for a personal account, or maybe they're not using a password manager, I guess is a better question, in their personal life. And so they're not secure there. So how do you guys combat that?
No, absolutely. I think it's a very fine line between personal passwords and business passwords, right? So ultimately having that hygiene is important, but realistically for LastPass users, we have the ability to set certain policies and certain restrictions around how people are adopting password policies, right? And that's sometimes more on the business side where you're having business conversations with business owners, but that still applies to home users as well. You want to have strict password policies, and that is usually nipped in the bud by generating passwords. You generate a password, 16 characters. Realistically, you only need to remember one to get into your LastPass vault, right? So that's that single sign on, as well as another benefit of this is that we've got people who are business users that may be going to Salesforce, business applications. You've got personal users that are going to banking applications, their Gmail, as you're saying, all of those things. You generate unique passwords for each of those. And as a user, you really only need to remember one.
Right. Yeah. And then, in terms of those passwords, do they automatically fill in when you use a browser, or how does that work?
They do.
Maybe Jeremy, they do.
Jeremy, go ahead.
Yeah, LastPass is great because it works no matter where you are, right? You can be on the road, right? Like I am, on your laptop, right? All you have to do is log on to the LastPass browser extension. And what it'll do is for all those, strange passwords that you automatically generated that you probably can't remember or pronounce even, it'll fill that in automatically for you onto those websites or services that you're trying to log on to. That also includes, the saved information that you might have in your vault, like credit cards, insurance information, things that you want to keep secure, locked down, filed away, but, easily accessible. All that can go into your password manager.
Okay.
Awesome. So I think obviously security, we hit that as one of the pros. If we kind of sum this up, convenience, right? Automatically filling websites. And again, I'm talking from personal experience. It's just so easy. I log in once for my master password, and then I just start hitting all the passwords I want. Also, I can work on multiple devices. I think that's a huge one, right? Whether it's my mobile, whether it's my laptop, my desktop, I log in to LastPass, all the websites I go to are there. But another, I think less common known, even for me, I'm still learning it. And you've talked about this in the past, Jeremy, is what else is LastPass used outside of just passwords? That's what it's known for. But what other things can you use it for?
Yeah. So all those things that you're storing in there can be, stored into the vault, like credit card information, insurance information, things like that, right? So a couple of great use cases out there, right? Or number one, right? Say that, your spouse needs to gain access to your insurance information. You can share that information out using LastPass, using our secure encrypted sharing feature and functionality. That also applies to business use cases, right? So say that you, Adrian or Mike, you want to, buy a lunch for, a customer or something like that. You can share your credit card information out to, the coordinator for that event, right? And they can use the corporate credit card to, purchase some sandwiches for the whole team. So a lot of great use cases there, other than, sending your passwords out via email or text message, which are, not as secure as an encrypted password manager.
And when you share that with a colleague or somebody else, you can share like a password, for example, and they won't actually know the password, right? You're just giving them access. It'll automatically fill out the form for them to log in, and they're done, right?
Exactly. And we have over 120 different enterprise business grade policies that control, how often somebody can see a password, when they can see the password, how long the passwords can be. So it's not just a personal tool like you might be using LastPass for at home, right? It's also a business grade, enterprise grade tool.
Yeah.
So you can track it, and you have like an audit report for compliance.
Exactly.
Right.
Cool.
And one quick plug I want to give to you guys. I think it's a brilliant idea. Going back to Chris, what you're talking about, separating business versus personal. LastPass in the last year or less, you have now added the families plan to a business plan. So, and I'm paraphrasing, correct me if I'm wrong, but our customers, for example, when they subscribe to get a LastPass business account, each one of their employees gets their work account, right? But they also get 5 more additional personal licenses to use personally, to use with their spouse, their kids, even friends and family, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a very, very blurred line between business and personal. So here at LastPass, we want from the ground up, not only your business employees, but their families, right? Whether that's a kid's iPad that's got multiple passwords, whether that's like, for instance, my mom and my dad are in their mid-60s, had passwords written down all over the place. Their families as a benefit, got them signed up, and we've got all of this, basically our own little network as families as a benefit, that we were able to share the information that Jeremy's talking about and have passwords. So when for instance, his Ring doorbell needs reset, he can't remember what the password is. Now he knows where it is. So it's a really nice added feature that we give to our customers. Yeah,
it really is. We were
Really good
super
point.
excited to hear that, because one of the biggest, as a business owner, what I'd hear all the time was, well, I don't want my employees storing all the personal stuff in this business LastPass account. So that really helped there. And of course, they can give it. But so we've talked about all these great pros, and honestly, in my book, there's really no downside to using LastPass. But Mike, let me ask you, because you deal with a lot of our onboardings when we have new organizations we work with.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's concerns out there, right, about LastPass or just password managers in general. What are some of the top ones we hear about? And maybe Chris and Jeremy, you can take a stab at how we overcome those concerns.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Adrian. And I would say the biggest concern we always hear from new clients as they're learning about LastPass or any password manager they're using is, look, I'm putting all my passwords, all my sensitive data in this one place under one password. How am I going to be safe if that's hacked, when that's hacked? I mean, security is not 100%. So maybe, Jeremy, tell us about how you're protecting someone's information that's stored in that secure vault.
Yeah. And, that is a legitimate concern, right? What happens if, somebody gets into my vault, or what if I get hacked and somebody takes my computer data, right? So first and foremost, LastPass has a zero knowledge security infrastructure, which means that we don't know what your passwords are. They're encrypted over 100,000 times using military grade encryption before they even get to our cloud-based servers. So, your data is secured in case of, knock on wood, our company gets breached or something happens to the data on your computer. They can get your vault, right? They can get your vault data, but they're not going to get into it, right? It's secured and encrypted.
It's just going to be gibberish, right?
It's going to be, exactly. It's going to be unreadable. It's going to be like one of those passwords that you can't pronounce.
Gotcha. Well, and the other thing is, what about your master password? So usually you want to create a good password. We recommend using like a passphrase. So you take a word from a lyric, you take your favorite football team, like the Steelers, change up a few characters, make it 12 to 15 characters long, but it's a phrase that are words that you remember. But what if I lose that? I mean, then again, I'm stuck, because I don't have any access to my passwords, my social security, all the other information that I would put in there. What happens there?
Yeah, I can take that one. So
all right.
Not only is it extremely easy to reset a master password with multiple recovery options, we do also offer multi-factor authentication, which means that you have to sign in twice, right? So for somebody to get into our portal, they would have to authenticate themselves, and that could be done by text message or biometrics, but they would have to prove that they are who they say they are. So that's one of our fail safes. But go ahead, Jeremy. I'm sure you got something to add there.
I was just going to mention that you should probably change your password, since he mentioned that your password might be related to the Steelers, Chris. So
it's
sorry, Chris.
Yeah, it was before.
Before LastPass, huh?
Exactly.
Chris, you brought up a good one. I just want to chime in on that, because in what we advise to our customers is, if you're using LastPass, you have to use MFA or multi-factor authentication, because if someone does get a hold of that master password, that one password you've created, that wouldn't be good. So by creating an MFA, even if someone steals my master password, I'm going to get a notification on my phone saying, hey, someone's trying to log in to LastPass. Do you approve? I would deny that, right? I would know immediately that something's not right, and they're going to get blocked. And just another note there, you guys have developed so much granularity, which is great. Like, for example, if someone's LastPass is logged in on their computer for X amount of time and idle, we can log them out automatically, right? If they haven't logged into a device for so many days. So let's say you had an iPad laying around and you only use it once in a while. If you log in, it's going to prompt you to authenticate yourself, right? Because, hey, we don't recognize this device. It's been a while. So those are nice extra security features that I try to advise, our business owners. But I have another one for you that has come up. I had a good question from an owner. Okay, I like the password manager. I get it. We need to use it. But how do I enforce my employees when they first enroll? Is it going to be hard? Number one, what do they have to do? And number two, if they just bring in all the passwords they currently have, right? So let's say they're not using strong passwords for all their 50 sites and they just log them into LastPass. How is that going to be any more secure? Right. And I know the answer to it, but I'm going to give that one to you guys and see what systems are in place for LastPass to help that user become more secure.
Yeah, great question. LastPass has a security score, right? So it kind of gives you a percentage of, how secure your environment is, right? If your passwords are weak or reused. So as you start to use LastPass, right, it just vacuums up the passwords and it asks you if you want to put those passwords into your vault. So you can say yes or no, right, depending. And then, of course, right from there, right, you just start using LastPass as usual. And then from there, right, you'll get the ability to audit your security score. Your business will get the ability to audit your security score, which tells you how weak or reused your passwords are. And it gives you the opportunity to update those passwords. You don't have to, right? But eventually, right, Mike and Adrian or your business is going to get a report that says you're on the list, right? You've got a low security score. You need to fix those passwords before we can, move on.
Yeah. And I think that is super cool. And I think that's something that stands out with LastPass because obviously we've been using password managers for a long time and I've tried different ones, but I like the ease of use that you guys have built in. And yeah, that score just shows you, hey, or even when you're on a website, you get an alert saying, hey, this password has been reused. You should change it. A couple clicks, generate a new password, save it. Now I've just added more security. So I think it's really neat. So that kind of relates to the other big concern that we get, right, when we're onboarding a new LastPass customer is, let's say I have 100 employees and I've got to roll this whole thing out. That sounds like a pain. It's gonna be so difficult. What is the onboarding process like? And Mike, you can chime in on this. You handle a lot of this. I mean, how hard really is it for an organization to enroll in LastPass?
It really isn't. That's again, I think what you were touching on, Adrian, about convenience. And with LastPass and most password managers, let's not just promote LastPass. That's the one we love, and it is the most convenient. But in terms of being able to just add a password once you're on your site, you don't need to necessarily go every time and import all your passwords. You can, if you have an Excel spreadsheet that isn't protected and you have all your passwords there, great, put it into your LastPass. But if not, as your day-to-day, operations go, as you're browsing on the websites, going to your accounts, that's when you can add in those passwords or you can change them. So it's not really going to interrupt the normal workflow or the workday. And so that's something we see and we try to kind of talk about and explain to users as they start to enroll and adopt LastPass.
Yeah, so I guess the best way to the short answer that I would tell somebody is it's not like a lot of other technology where it's like, hey, we're gonna have a go live date and it's gonna be a hard cutover. You can implement it, people can self-enroll, and they can choose to be the super user that in 1 hour gets everything set up in LastPass and all their passwords, or it may take them a month as they start using more websites. Like you said, Jeremy, I like that. It vacuums up your password. It's a good way to put it.
Yep, I like that visual.
What other big concerns, or are there any other, Mike, that you can think of that we've come across?
Not that I can think of. I mean, I think we touched on the top ones. It's just the fear of, again, having all my eggs in one basket. Where am I? Is this going to be safe? Because then everything's there.
Yeah, and I think like Jeremy and Chris have said, there's so many different layers that LastPass has. I mean, just the way you encrypt the data, number one, on the back end. Number two, putting MFA in, putting extra security like idle times. even if someone loses their laptop, right, at an airport, someone picks up the laptop, LastPass will be logged out, right? They won't be able to use it. So, those are all big ones. But I would say, Mike, is what's the alternative? Saving an Excel spreadsheet on your network called passwords, writing Post-it notes with passwords, right? Those are not secure. So
Right.
To me,
Yeah.
and this is what I tell our customers is we can't force them, obviously, right? Everyone has their own choice, but it should be a requirement. I mean, everyone should be using a password manager at work and in their personal lives.
Yeah,
True.
we get asked sometimes about, oh, well, why can't I just use Google passwords, for instance, right? It comes back to that zero knowledge model, right? We know that we've got that encryption, that AES 256 encryption, right? That's going to be a differentiator, realistically, for us, as opposed to something like a free password manager, right? We are a true password manager that is backed by that encryption and zero knowledge model. That's going to be a differentiator for us.
That's a really good point, Chris, because I know, no offense to Google if you're listening out there, Chrome really has a good system where it keeps popping up. Hey, remember the password? Even your iOS, right, does that. And I'll just tell you, it's much easier to find those passwords if I'm a hacker and I get on your device than it would be on LastPass. So,
True.
yeah,
And
sure.
it's third party too. Sorry, Jeremy.
Okay.
Google is not protecting that. It's just out there. And just a quick tip, you can always, once I started using LastPass, I've now turned off that password manager so I don't get both notices. It's only just LastPass. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, and say you switch from, iPhone to Android or PC to Mac, right? You want a platform that's, not built around one of those options, so you can easily transfer your data or, even share that out, right? Like how many people do text messaging and they don't get that blue box because they're texting with an Android device, right? It's the same thing with your passwords. You want something that works across all those platforms.
Yep,
Exactly.
So, okay. Well, I think, we've covered the basic pros and cons. We could talk to this to death. We love technology, so we could go wax poetic forever. But I think, thanks for being on today.
Yeah.
I just want to thank everyone that did attend today. Remind everyone that Adrian and I were with Zeta Sky. We focus on cybersecurity solutions as well as managed services within the Inland Empire area. And we work a lot with manufacturing, distribution, law firms. Those are some of our main specialties, I guess, is how we could say it, Adrian. And, we're going to have another live stream. Episode 3, 4, 5 is coming up in April because we're going to be focusing on Microsoft Teams. Everybody has it. You probably do have it. If you have Microsoft 365, you have Teams. But are you using it? And how can you use it to kind of improve the workflow, improve the efficiency, improve just your daily life? We've enabled it since, I guess, the inception, right? Since I started at Zeta Sky.
Yeah.
And it's grown leaps and bounds. I mean, we have all our meetings. We don't use Zoom. We call from there. We have everything integrated into that one platform and can quickly chat and talk and things like that. So look forward to that. You'll see some posts about it coming up in April. And then just also, we're going to have a live lunch and learn event. So if there's any IT professionals on this chat or checking out our video later, come join us. We're going to be talking about ransomware and how it's not stopping and how's the best way to recover. And we're going to, give you some cyber fighter training skills. So be on the lookout for that. So I don't know. Yeah, definitely. So thank you again, Jeremy. Thank you, Chris. I want to, for
Thanks
spending
for
some time with us. If you're looking in at LastPass, reach us and we'll be glad to help out.
All right, guys. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
You guys have a good one. Everyone have a good one out there.
All right. Thanks.